Okay, so day 4 for our Salesnet admin training is really dedicated to some of our advanced topics. We're going to wrap up our final piece on reporting, which is really done through our dashboard area, focusing mostly on the graphical dashboards or the chart dashboards. Then we're going to go into somewhat the data management side of administration, which includes importing, reassigning records, external data capture setup. We'll also hit the record merge topic, and then we'll look at our optional modules for users. So this would be all of the add-ins that we currently have in place for Salesnet that include Office and then our Excel add-in product. Okay, so let's start the slideshow. Okay, so our first topic is dashboards. And if you'll remember, we ended with reports or reporting in our third session, and we went through the different pieces of reports as far as picking your fields, performing data filters, as well as ownership filters. And the reports piece had built nicely on top of reviewing the list page management and query management that you perform on each one of your data tabs or your list tabs. So dashboard is a continuation of those ideas or topics. It's very much like the reporting pieces that we reviewed in session 3. Some of our facts about dashboards: we could have more than one dashboard. We have 2 types of dashboards, one that shows charts and one that shows lists, just list panels. Each one of your dashboards can have multiple elements on it, and our chart elements have the ability to drill into them. So when you click on any part of the graphic or an axis, then you get a mini detailed report that pops up from behind. Building dashboards is an administrative task, as well as then managing them, and management being sharing those with other users, being able to troubleshoot dashboards or look at other users' dashboards, and controlling the drill down reports that you can get from your dashboards. Okay, when we look at a graphical dashboard or a chart dashboard, we see that we have parts of the graphic, and we can have kind of a compound or complex graphic in which we stack our bars. So when you look at a graphic like this, you can click on any portion of the color, okay, to get a combination of give me all of the engage stage opportunities for the Salesnet 04 user. That would be that bright red, the redder color there. So that gives you a quick slice and dice of the data. You'll also notice some management links beneath that, so you can refresh this chart at any time. If you click edit, this gives you the ability to edit the makeup of the dashboard chart, as well as delete it. And then detail and all give you drill down information, and so we'll look at that on a live example shortly. Our list panels, okay, layered here on the right, these show you up to 4 columns worth of information, okay, and they're meant to give you that kind of quick, give me my top 10 opportunities by revenue, give me the last 30 accounts that I accessed or touched. Okay, and then our dashboards are, of course, all located in our initial dashboard tab. As a new user, when they log in, they always land on the dashboard tab. Ongoing, they can change away from that, but that is the first tab that they see when they log into the system. Okay, so the process for creating a dashboard. You may recognize this from the process for creating a report slide. They are very similar. One of the most challenging things is to really know what it is you want to reflect to yourself as a manager, maybe, or to your management, as well as to the users. Okay, so defining those real world dashboard needs, okay, that's the first step. And then we have to go through that process of mapping it into Salesnet. Okay, well, if I want to track some kind of pipeline or a forecast, okay, that obviously is going to go into an opportunity area type chart. So you would maybe want to start with an opportunity chart. And so we typically recommend that you start with something that's already there, that already works. So there are some built-in dashboards already for you, so all you have to do is select one, and then you can start modifying it from there. Okay, so when you're going to get started with a dashboard, okay, start building a new dashboard, and the entire page is the dashboard. Okay, that is all done from the icons just to the right, okay, of the dashboard drop-down. Okay, if you have the ability to create dashboards, okay, you will see all 4 of these icons available to you. Okay, that means that, well, if you have the ability, so let me take that back. If you have the ability to create dashboards, you're going to see this icon with the plus sign. Okay, that means add a dashboard, add a new page. Okay, if you have the ability to edit the dashboard that is selected, you'll see the customize icon, the delete icon, okay, and the kind of a rearrange icon here. Okay, so let's go look at that in Salesnet. So if you look up in the top left-hand corner, okay, you can see that I have all 4 icons available. This icon, I think I said customize initially, but this just means add graphic or add chart. Okay, so that means I'm going to add a new chart panel or graphic to this page. This plus sign means add an entirely new page. The X means delete the dashboard. And then this is the customize icon, and that is the ability to rearrange the panels. Okay, rearrange each graphic. I'd like to have this one on the bottom and one to the right, etc. Okay, so if you can build dashboards, you're for sure going to see this plus sign here. And if you can edit the one that you're currently selected on, you'll see these other icons. Okay, so kind of similar, if you remember back on our list pages, okay, if I've got the ability to manage or add my own layouts, I'll see these plus signs. Okay, that means add query, add layout. If I can edit the layout that I'm currently working with or selected, I'll have a pencil. Okay. Alright, so that's our management icons. And users are going to have the ability to add their own dashboard as long as they don't have view only selected. Okay, so if I go look over at the user profile, and you'll see there's a read-only setting for dashboards. Okay, as long as they're not set to read-only, for dashboards, they'll be able to build their own dashboards. Typically, users are just not going to go that far or that deep into the functionality, though. Okay, so once we click the Add icon for dashboard, we'll get a pop-up that allows us to name it, and then we can say which type of dashboard we want to add. So we're going to start with a chart dashboard or a listing dashboard, or are we going to copy one that we already have in place? Okay, so we can't mix charts and panels together, okay, but we can copy from some ones that we already have. All right? So once we have our new dashboard in place, then we just need to add panels to them or charts to them. Okay, and that's what the first icon is for. All right, so let's go through the steps there. So we'll just add a quick dashboard. Okay, I click the plus sign. Call this Demo July, and I'll just start with a blank one. If I wanted to copy from, you can see how I get a drop down when I select that radio button. Okay, but we'll start with a blank chart and save. Immediately this refreshes. It's selected my new page, and you'll see it says I currently have no elements. Okay. Now we're going to add the chart element, and so when we add our first element, again, you do that with the first icon. Okay, and from here, okay, I just need to go through the different pre-built elements to decide what it is I want to graph. Okay, so let's do a relatively simple exercise. All right, and let's say we want to do a company chart, and we want to subdivide it instead of by state. Let's just do something by city, right? We want to see, our distribution of accounts or companies across the cities, okay, that they're in. Okay, so that's what we'll do. So that means we'll want to scroll through, select from the account charts, and then I'll immediately get a pop-up that I can edit from there. Okay, so if I come here and I click the first icon to add an element, you see I can now scroll through and I get a little description, okay, about each one of these elements. And so notice, at the top, these are broken out into our main types of data: lead, company, contact, opportunity, opportunity step. Okay, now we're starting to get into kind of our secondary level items. Okay, not our main data tabs, but things like step, appointment, task. Okay, so we can start looking at some of the activities on this page. But we said we wanted to do companies by city, so I want to pick one that's relatively the same, or a good starting point, to where I'm trying to go. So I definitely want to start with a company chart or an account chart, and then I want to modify it from there. So I'll start with companies by state, and I immediately have the definition here that I can edit to modify. So my dashboard has not refreshed yet, so you're not seeing that the chart is there, but as soon as I'm done making my modifications, I'll just click done and refresh, and the page behind me will update. Okay, but I'll go ahead and close this down and let me refresh the page so you can see this is what it looks like out of the box. Okay, it automatically works for me, okay, because it's pulling in the built-in state field and showing me how many companies I have distributed across each state. So my task is going to be relatively simple in that I want to graph it across cities instead of states. Okay. Now, if I want to get back in here to edit this graphic, I have to use my links across the bottom. Okay, and I'm just going to click the edit link. And again, this is where we not only edit each piece of this, but we can also delete elements or graphs from the page. Okay, so we're going to just take a little look at, adding listing elements as well before we get into the detail of going through each piece of the chart. Okay, but the listing pages work much the same way. Okay, when we start a list page, when we go to add a new panel onto the list page, we get to pick from a set of predefined panels. Okay, from there we can customize them somewhat. Okay, this is a much more simple scenario, and we'll cover that at the end rather than try to mix in managing the list page elements. Okay, so let's go ahead. Oops, sorry, I popped ahead too far, so let's go back to okay, let's go back to this slide. So we're going to walk through each section for this dashboard element. Okay, so this is very, again, similar to working through the sections of a report. Okay, once you get a report in place that you want to edit, you just methodically walk through each portion. Okay, and we're highlighting and explaining what these portions are. Okay, the first one is fairly straightforward in that it's just the name and the description for the dashboard. Okay, so we can modify those. And then we have a refresh setting here. So dashboards are somewhat like a push or subscription model in that they don't refresh every time you go to the dashboard page. So if I went to the dashboard page once every 5 minutes, the system would not automatically give me fresh data. There is a minimum of a 4-hour window, okay, that the system will perform an automatic refresh. So if I log in at 9 o'clock in the morning and my graphic is on a 4-hour refresh, then the system knows that I accessed it last at 9 o'clock, and it will not provide me an automated refresh of data until 1 o'clock. Okay, that's a 4-hour window. So if I go and look at my dashboard again at 11, it's going to look the same as it did at 9. Okay, but if I go to lunch and I come back and I go back in at 1:30 and I go to my dashboard, I will get an automatic refresh of data. Okay, and graphics, that kind of data pull can be somewhat heavy, so that's why there's more of a systematic refresh model. But the nice thing is we do give every user the ability to click the refresh link for each chart so that you can get a refresh of the data whenever you want, okay, if you're specifically looking for some information there. Okay, so let's go and look at that on our example. So, my chart still says companies by state, but I definitely want to change that as well as change the description. Okay, companies by city. Oops. And, I think I'm probably going to go for a horizontal bar. So I can say, I can make this be whatever it is. So all companies broken out by city. Okay, and then I can make my, again, auto refresh happen at a minimum window of every 4 hours. And we can also set some to be just manual so that there's never an automated refresh, it's just a manual pull. Okay, so I save that and you can see that it updated here, and I'll click done and refresh, and let's look at the changes here. Okay, so that immediately updated, and as I mouse over the title, you'll also see my new description, okay, is displayed in the mouse over. Okay, now let's go and talk about the next section that we're going to edit. Okay, now we're going to pick the fields, okay, that we want to display in the chart. Okay, so just like reports, if you'll remember, once you got through those initial sections of, name, description, and the presentation options, you immediately pick the fields that you wanted to see in the report. Same thing for this chart. Now I need to designate which fields I'm going to show in the chart, in the graphic. Okay, so there are 3 selections to make. Okay, first of all, we need to pick what it is that we're aggregating, okay, in the graphic. Okay, so are we doing record counts? So I want to see numbers of things like numbers of companies, numbers of opportunities, or in the case of an opportunity, maybe I want to sum opportunity values. Okay, this selection of cell value, okay, that's what's being tallied within each bar. So in this case, we just are set to show the record count. Okay, so Alabama has 111 companies listed in it. Okay. Let me go and edit that section. Okay, so I have the ability to summarize the numbers of records showing here. Okay. Now, if I have any kind of number or a currency field within the system, okay, I can summarize or take averages on that. So let's say we were tracking the loan balance for each one of our companies. I could summarize the loan balance. So instead of seeing counts of things, I would see a summary of all of the dollar amounts in loan balance. But then not only can I summarize them, I can take averages, mins, or maximums. Okay, I have some other aggregates that I can tap into. Okay, but I'm going to leave it at record count. And we're just going to summarize that. Sorry. Okay. All right, next, okay, in this page, we're going to look at the information for the row and the column. Okay, we're going to see which fields we want to see for the different access points. Okay, and it might be a little confusing, okay, to look at this as row and column when a lot of times you're maybe used to considering it X and Y. Okay, but really think about it as, I like to present it or talk about it in the form of what you're grouping by. Okay, so your first level or your first group, okay, is going to be the major grouping of your bars in the case of a bar chart. Okay, so if we look at the row category here for state, okay, so our major grouping is state. Okay, so that's how we see it broken out. Okay, each bar is represented by a state. Okay. All right, so that row setting is your first group by value. Okay, your major group by value. Okay, now I said I wanted to change mine to be city. Okay, and now this is an interesting selection because, you know, state is a drop down, fine. City is a key in field, so it's going to ask me, okay, group it by the first 10 letters of the city name. Okay, so if I have somebody who's typed in Birmingham and then somebody else has typed in BIRMING period, okay, so I may get, you know, my grouping to align that way. So it'll look at the first 10 characters. So I'm going to go ahead and apply that just so we could see what happens to this graphic. Okay, so I'm going away from state, so I'll no longer see states here, but I'll see cities. Oh, I didn't click done and refresh, sorry. Let's do that one more time. I think I shut down too many windows, sorry. Okay, city, I'm going to save that, and then done and refresh. There we go. Okay, so see how now this changes and shows me the grouping by city name. All right, so I've chosen city as my row value, which is my first major grouping, which is what any bar is going to be based on. Okay, or if I did a spline or a line chart, they would all be points based on the values of city. Okay, now when we talk about looking at giving a subdivision, okay, or a subgrouping within a given bar, all right, we call that stacking. Okay, so we have two options where we can not only show you what the entire bar is made of, so the entire city, but I could also select a second field as a subgrouping value. Okay, so I could subgroup things, okay, within the major bar. Okay, that's my column value. Okay, column value is only obeyed, okay, when you have stacked options, like stacked vertical and stacked horizontal. Okay, so I'm actually going to apply a subcategory, okay, inside of our example here. First, though, I'm going to make this graphic bigger so that we can see a little more detail. And I do that by going to the Customize Dashboard icon. Okay, when I click that, you'll see a representation of the graphic, and you can see the name here. And I can use these arrows, okay, to widen the graphic. There's really no limit here except with what's feasible, for a user. And I can use arrows to move them up and down. If I had more graphics here, it would actually move. Okay, and then when you're managing multiple graphics, you can actually click on this Move link. Okay, and you can move them to different rows. And so it's somewhat of a spreadsheet notation here. What's the row and the column, and so you can move those around. And just a quick note, if I wanted to change the name of the entire dashboard page, I would do that through the Customize area as well. Just edit and change the name. Okay, so I've made that bigger. We'll click Done. Okay, now we can see, it's spread out quite a bit more here. All right, so let's apply a subgrouping. Okay, so I want to see, like in the case of Atlanta, I want to see, who owns those accounts. So in Atlanta, who is the owner? So if I edit data and chart options, now I can pick my column field value, and again, this is the subgrouping value, and I'll go down and I'll pick owner. And I can even subdivide this by positions or teams, but I'll do it by user. And I need to select the stacked vertical bar option if I want them to be on top of one another. So I want one bar for Atlanta, but I want individual sections of the Atlanta bar to be represented for which user owns that record. So let's save that. Okay, and it updates here. And I click Done and Refresh. Okay, so let's look at this now. So if you'll look at my Atlanta bar, okay, I have a number of colors here, and I can mouse over each one. So Ted has 15 accounts in Atlanta. User 1 has 2, User 2 has 2, User 3 has 14, okay, and so on. Okay, so do you see how each one of the bars is grouped, okay, by the row value, and then each one of the bars is then subgrouped, okay, by the column value. So it's grouping and subgrouping. Just think of it that way, okay. Now let me show you a couple little tricks, okay, on managing this information. So let's say, well, we really want to see how many accounts each user owns, but we would like to see it subgrouped by city. Okay, so we want each bar to be represented by the owner, and then we want to see sections within the bar. So let's edit that. So what I really need to do here is I need to switch the two. Right? I want owner to be my major group, and I want city to be my subgroup. I'm just going to click switch, little trick here, and it does it for me automatically. Okay, that's really nice. I really like that option. So now I just have to save, done, and refresh. Let's give it a second. Okay, so what I decided to do here was to go back to the state value, okay, so that we could see what really is happening here. So now we have each major bar represented by the user. Okay, so the user is the row category, our primary grouping, and then within each user's bar we have a subgrouping, okay, for state. All right, so again, we just used our little switch option, okay, to go back and forth between the two. So if I switch it again, I'll be back into a scenario where each bar, okay, is then represented by a state and then subgrouped by user. Okay. So it seems, I think the terminology maybe seems a little difficult at first, but if you think about it as group and subgroup, I think that really helps, okay, clarify. Okay, then we get into our filtering options. And so remember, okay, how our queries and our reports work. We first filter on data, and then we filter on ownership. So the first section, called filtered options or filter options, is just concerned with filtering on data fields. Okay, and this looks a lot like the filtering interface for a query. You select a field, click the Add Filter button, and then that adds the field to this window so that you can then adjust the the filtering to filter it down. Okay, this information is ANDed together, so there's no OR filtering like we have in the reports section. Okay, and then another note, okay, is that all of your built-in fields are available here for filtering, okay, but only custom fields will be available, okay, if they're actually used in the chart themselves. Okay, so what does that mean? What am I saying? Okay, if we go and edit this chart, okay, and I go look at my filter options, you'll see here I have all of my built-in fields available, but we know that there are lots of custom fields in place as well, okay, for our company or our account records. But I can't select any of them. Okay, so let's say we really wanted to filter on one of our key market or our industry drop downs. So we'll break out, but we can't utilize industry as a filter unless it's chosen as one of the fields that we're displaying in the chart. So let me edit, and let's go choose one of the custom fields as one of the graphed fields here. So let's go back and let's look at, okay, industry. Okay, it's a pick list. Okay, and so now what I'm expecting is each one of my major groups is state, and within each state I'm going to provide an industry subgroup. Okay, so I'm going to save that. And let's see what that looks like. Okay, and so we don't really have industry filled in very much. You can see it showing up in a few places. But now let's say I want to cut it down to government and finance. Okay, I want to filter everything else out. So now I have the ability to go in to my filter options. And now industry is here. And I can filter it down to just government. Let's see. So finance must have been a modified term there. So let's just go for government and energy utilities. Okay. Save that. You can see my filter is in place. Done and refresh. And now I have government and energy utilities. Okay, I have one in Alabama and one in South Carolina. Okay, so that's an important point. Okay, if you want to be able to filter on custom field, then all you have to do is select one of those custom fields as your group or subgroup, and then it'll be available. Okay, so that's our field filtering. So now if I go and look at the next section, we have our data filtering. Okay, and that's all about the my, the all, the other. Okay, remember that? When we select, what we're going to filter by, we can set these charts up to obey the my rules, which means when we share this out with users, if they run it, they're going to see the data that they own. They're going to see my, quote, my data. If we set it to all prospects, whenever someone else runs this dashboard, they're going to see all the data they have access to. Or we can hard code it, so to speak, to only look at a certain specific set of users, or a team, the cross-selling team, or give me everything from a given queue, okay, if we're talking about the leads area. Okay, so Again, if we go look here to edit company ownership, I can do the my or the all, or I can select certain positions, teams, or users. Okay, and we'll leave it for all right now. Okay, so a couple little quick notes here about the graphic, or the chart, sorry, option. If we click on the detail, okay, this gives us a different output, all right, than just a straight drill down report. When I click on the detail link, I'm going to see more of a tabular result here. Okay, I get my row fields, okay, down the left, and my column fields across the top. Okay, and I get numbers in between. Let's take off that filter so that we can get a little better look at that tabular output. So I'm editing, and I'm going to remove the filter with the remove link, save, done, and refresh, and now you're going to see all my states come back with all my industries. Now when I go look at detail, okay, I get this nice little tabular output. Kind of an interesting thing about this is I get, sums per, per state, per row, per column, but they're also hot. Okay, so I can drill in and I can look at, okay, show me all of the finance companies in Michigan. And when I click that, okay, I get my little drill down report. Okay, and this can be exported to Excel. And then all, of course, gives me the drill down for the entire contents of the chart. Broken out first by my major grouping of industry, okay, and then, my major grouping of state, and then each state is subgrouped by industry. Okay. And so let's make one more final example, or one more change, and we're going to edit. And I want to show you the concept of summing, okay, something other than record count. Let's say we want to sum company revenue. So we're effectively going to look at, show me all of the revenue produced by my accounts in each state. So I'm going to click Save, done, and refresh. Okay, so we don't have a lot of this populated. Alabama clearly is in the lead. And then we have Tennessee here, okay, with a little bit here. So, okay, this is the concept of summing dollars. And if we want to, we can click and see, who's our big heavy hitters here in Alabama. So let's actually modify that and make that a little smaller. Required field. Oh. Okay, remember my chart didn't change because of my refresh window, but I can refresh it manually if I want. Okay, and that didn't change that too much. Let's change this guy. I really want to see that bar drop so we can see a difference. So I took that guy out. I'm going to refresh again. There we go. So you can see my numbers changed here. Okay. Okay, so that's the coverage of chart dashboards. Let's go and hit our list dashboards very quickly. Again, when we click the little block plus sign icon on a list element dashboard, then we get to pick from those kind of panels. So let's walk through that scenario very quickly. I'm going to add, a new list page a listing dashboard. So demo July list, and save. And now I'm going to get a blank page to work with, and you'll see these two are side by side. You'll also note that they're flagged with a C and an L. And I'm going to click the same icon here for adding elements, but now you'll just see I get to pick from list elements. So in this case, I can pick recent, or I can pick top. Right? In the case of the top items, I can designate what columns I want to see. Okay, so let's look at our top companies, and we'll do one by revenue. So top companies, and we'll say by rev, and I'm going to show the name and the owner. Obviously, I want company revenue in there. And I want to sort by that one, and I want to sort it descending because I want to see the biggest at the top. And then we can add another value on there. Let's add something like website. Let's see how that looks. Okay, and here, okay, similar to the other chart element, but it looks a little different. We have the ability to give it a name, okay, so a title for our panel. Then we have to select our fields. Okay, we're also designating how many records we want to see. That's a little bit different. But select your fields, and then you have to select your ownership. Okay, there is no data filtering here, only ownership filtering. And so, you know, I really wish this said my instead of me, but this is the same concept. If I set this graphic up to show me companies owned by my or me, that means whoever runs this, they're going to see the things they own, right? Or I can set it up to show a particular user, a particular team position. There's no concept of showing all here in these panels. Okay, these panels are meant to be kind of quick go-to lists of data. So it's meant to be focused on particular users or sets of users. Okay, so let's keep it with me, and we'll click Save. It immediately refreshes. You can see my panel stretches across the whole page, and my revenue is sorted biggest to largest, and you can see I even have my little links here that I put in. Okay, we can have up to 3 panels across the page. So as I add panels, so let's just add a few here. We'll do recent leads. And I really don't even have to change anything. They just go onto the page. And then I'll do recent reports. Now you see how they're stacking up one by one. Now I can use my customize icon to go in and move them around. You see I have 3 columns to work with, and I can move leads over to the middle column, and I can move recent reports over to the 3rd column. I can change the name from here, and I can even decide if I have more than one list page listing dashboard, I could move panels to other pages if I wanted to. That's what this means. Okay, so I put a panel in each column. Alright, so let's go hit our topic on dashboard management now. So we just went over building the dashboards, okay, and anyone that is not set for dashboard read-only can build dashboards. But then we have the ability to administer dashboards, and that requires dashboard administration privileges. Okay, and when you are a dashboard administrator, that enables the dashboard menu in the setup area. Okay, so let's go look. If we go look at the user profile, dashboard administrator is located here. And if I go all the way down, you'll see my dashboard setup menu is here. Okay, so we have a little slide that goes over what each one of those menu items is. So chart drill down fields, pretty self-explanatory. That controls the fields that you see when you drill in, pop up a report from a chart element. Direct access to users gives you the ability to view the dashboards that other users have, and when it runs it like it's that user. So this is very handy, you know, in the case of troubleshooting dashboards. Okay, gives you the ability to go in and somebody says the dashboard's not showing me what I thought it should, and you can go in and look at it as that user and see if there's a problem. Okay, then we have 2 methods for actually sharing dashboards with other users. Okay, one is called a publish, and one is copying. Okay, publishing is like sharing a picture with someone. Okay, so if I build a dashboard, and if we go look at the dashboard that I just built, and it's showing me all of the accounts in the system across the board. Okay, and this is what it looks like when I run it. Okay, if I publish this dashboard to every other user in my system, then when they look at it, they're going to see it the way I see it. It doesn't matter if their privileges are different or they don't have access to all the data. They're going to see the results of that dashboard the same way I do. Now, if they drill in, they're not going to get the detail records unless they have access to the detail records. So when you publish a dashboard, that's like sharing a picture with the user. And it doesn't matter about their privileges, they're always going to see the same picture that you do. Okay? That's different from the concept of copying a dashboard. Copying a dashboard is more like sharing a template. Okay, so if I set up some graphics for users on a dashboard page and I share it out with 10 different users or copy it to them, when they run it, they're going to see the data that they have access to. Okay, and if I've set it to be the My Ownership filtering, they're just going to see the data that they own. Okay, so publishing has a more narrow usage. Typically we're copying because we want people to have the same framework or the same template, but we want it to pull back their data. Okay, so publish is like snapshot, copying is like template. Then we have the ability to set up default dashboards for new users, and I generally recommend that you do not do that, okay, that you make copying dashboards to users part of your new user setup. Okay, don't set the defaults. So our chart drill down fields, this is a screenshot of going in, and you simply are selecting the fields, and then you can apply some aggregate to it and some sorting. Okay, the nice thing about it is if you look at the fields that you have access to, this is very similar to building like a list page, okay, in the opportunity area or running an opportunity report. You've got access to not just opportunity fields, but contact fields and account fields. Okay, because all those records are linked to one another. So this becomes a very powerful output actually when users drill in to the dashboard. Okay, direct access to users, you simply select a user and then you select their name, and then you can see the dashboard output. A quick note, you're going to see that there are some editing icons here. Okay, I want to remind all the administrators to never edit a dashboard, okay, that you've shared or copied to other users through this interface, because what you're essentially doing is you're creating a one-off of that dashboard for that user. So if I copy my dashboard to Salesnet 02 and then I go in and look at it through direct access, I don't want to edit it here if I think there's a problem. Okay, if I edit it here, Salesnet 02 is the only person that's going to be able to see it. I want to go back to my original dashboard. I want to edit it and then recopy it. Okay, so don't ever edit dashboards that you've copied out to other users from this area. Here's publishing, so I just get a list of all the dashboards that are available to me, plus dashboards owned by any other administrator, and I simply click publish, and then I select who I want to publish it to. Okay, a real simple interface. And copying is the same way. Okay, when I go to copy chart listing dashboards, I simply get a list up, I click the copy link, and I select who to copy it to. Then you'll see you've got the ability to delete the copies, and there's some concept of giving users the permission to customize their dashboard. So I can send them a copy, but I could maybe let them rearrange the elements or delete elements or add their own elements. 99% of the time we don't recommend doing that, Okay, because typically when we build a dashboard, we're trying to build a framework for all users to be looking at the same type of data, so that when we are discussing Salesnet or trying to review, the different measurements that we're dashboarding, we want everybody to be looking at the same thing. Okay, so I typically recommend giving no permissions for users to edit copies of dashboards. And then here's setting the defaults for a new user. The reason that we don't I don't recommend that is that when you add a user and you have defaults set, it really is like creating a brand new instance of that dashboard for that user. Like, it's not a copy. Okay, it's their own dashboard that they can then go and do whatever they want to with it. And it's not tied into the copy that it came from. Okay, so there's some usage for it, but again, 99% of the time, I recommend making dashboard copy be part of your user rollout. Okay, so our tips and tricks, we recommend centralizing the dashboard functionality. You usually only want a handful of users who can do this and share those with people at the most. Users can build their own dashboards if they've not been set for read-only on the dashboard area. We always want our users to have at least one dashboard, okay, so that they can see the key measurements that have been laid out for them. You can, when you copy dashboards out, you can copy them to different groups of users, so different positions, teams, individual users. Remember, copying is like sharing a template or a framework, and publishing is like sharing a snapshot or a picture. And usually we're wanting to copy. Also remember, if you copy one of your dashboards out to users, if you go back and edit the original dashboard, you have to recopy that dashboard for them to be able to use it or see the changes. Okay, so it's kind of a nice thing in that you can make modifications and work on dashboards kind of in a safe place, and then when you're done, you can copy it out, okay, to the users that need access. And don't forget to customize your drill down fields, okay, because that can be very valuable with the data that a user can get back out. Okay, our next section is our entering and maintaining data, and there's a number of different ways to do that in Salesnet. And the first one that we're going to discuss is the import wizard. Okay, so a couple of notes on the import wizard or our import tool is you can create accounts, contacts, and opportunities with the import tool, and you can create those records kind of all at once and linked together. So Acme account with John Smith linked to it with an opportunity linked to that. And we can also create lead or prospect data with the import. All right, so you do have to pick, which type of record, either lead or account, contact, opportunity. The import accepts comma delimited files, so CSV files, which you can save an Excel sheet in a CSV format. And you can import into built-in fields, custom fields, and notes actually. When you perform imports, you can save definitions. So if you are performing the same import periodically, then you can save the definition, and so ongoing that saves a lot of time that you spend because you don't have to do the mapping of the fields. We typically cap importing at 5,000 records, but that is something that we can raise or modify as needed to assist in larger imports. And application administrators, this is kind of a misleading statement, importing is not tied to application administration. Importing has its own set of privileges. Okay, so if we look at our user profile, okay, we have importing set up here. So you can, restrict it to just leads, companies and contacts, and opportunities. Okay, so there's 3 privileges to make available for the import. Okay, so when you enable importing for a user, they're going to see 3 new items under the Data Transformation and Integration Services menu. That's a mouthful. So they'll see data import, okay, which is the launching of the wizard. Okay, you're going to perform an import. You can view the definitions that you've saved. So anything, definition templates that you've saved over time, you would see those listed here. And then you have your import history, okay, that you can go and look at. You do have up to 30 days to roll back any imports. Okay, so if you run an import and you're unhappy with that, you do have the ability to pull it back out of the system. Just a quick note though, let's say you import 1,000 accounts. If your users start going in and adding contacts to those accounts and modifying them, then when you roll back your import, it will leave those out. Okay, it won't pull those back out of the system. Okay, so just a note, and you can either take them out by hand or you can decide to leave them in there. Okay, so we have some tips or recommendations when working with the import wizard, and we have a couple of pages that go along with that. And I believe if you look in your we'll upload, it's not there yet, we'll upload into the materials panel a sample template with the same kind of notes in it so that you'll have the information for formatting in the future. But this just talks about how to set up the file, what kind of records can be imported, and then how to format the data. Okay, so generally you want each piece of data to be in its own field. Okay, otherwise you won't be able to map it to the right spots. When you're importing a contact or lead record, last name is required. If you're importing the account name, the account is required. Anything that maps to a drop-down, okay, has to have a valid drop-down value. Okay, so whether it's a built-in drop-down like state or a custom drop-down that you might put into place, those have to be valid or you will get a kickout. If we look at things like phone and fax, zip code, you're responsible for the formatting of that information if you want it to have a certain format. Things like website and email, they do have to be valid addresses or they will get kicked out. If we want to import into special fields like multi-value pick lists, okay, and that's where you can select more than one value in a drop-down, you would separate those values with a pipe. Okay, so if we had a multi-select list for industry, let's say a company serviced multiple industries, then we might put manufacturing, pipe, construction, pipe, government. Okay, and that would essentially select all 3 of those values within a multi-select list. If we're using a cascading list and we want to show, selecting a value further down in the list, we put in dash dash to designate, East Coast is the parent, Massachusetts is the second value. Okay, so these are just some formatting tips for you. Alright, so let's walk through the screens for the import wizard, and then we'll come back through and we'll actually run a little quick import, okay, ourselves just to walk through the process. The very first thing you do when you import is you go to the data import menu item and you have to select your file. Okay, when you select your file, you browse and click next. Essentially the file is sent to the Salesnet server and it's validated. Okay, it makes sure that there's no missing header names. Okay, every column of data has to have a field name at the top. Make sure that there's no formatting issues. Okay, and as soon as it gets through reading the file and validating the file, you'll get a second screen and it'll tell you, here's your file, here's all of the column names in the file. Okay, and then you get to pick what kind of import you're going to perform. Okay, if you're going to start a brand new import or if you're going to leverage one of the definitions, okay, that you have in place. Okay, so that's the first two steps. Okay, next, once we get past saying we're starting a new one or we're going to use a template, we can select the type of records that are going to be created. Now, if we're using a template, okay, all of these things are pre-selected for us. All we have to do is really just review it and click Next. If we're starting new, then we need to select the records that we're creating, okay, and you can only select one of these. And then we get the ability to perform duplicate management. Okay, so if we're creating company records, then we can decide to check for duplication on company name, for example, or we can select up to 4 fields. Let's say you want to use company name, city, and state. Okay, so unless all 3 of those values match, you would like to create a new record. Okay, but we can also perform import and not restrict on duplicates at all. Okay, and when it restricts on duplications, it not only looks within the Salesnet database for that value to already exist, it looks within the file itself. So it will look for duplicate entries within your single import file. Okay, so what type of records, how you want to handle deduping or duplication, and then finally what the owner will be. Okay, and we have 3 different ways to designate owner. We can hard code the owner for the entire file. We can say, okay, everything coming in goes to Ted Salesnet. Or we can say we want to designate owner based on a certain field of data. A perfect example of this is setting ownership based on state. So we import the file and we want to assign Georgia, Florida, South Carolina to Ted. We want to give Texas and Arizona to Jane. And when we choose this second option, then we choose the state field, we'll get an additional screen that allows us to make those assignments in the wizard. Okay, so this is kind of nice in that you don't have to prep your file beforehand for ownership. You can just leverage a field of data, okay, and perform that ownership mapping in the wizard itself. Our third option, okay, is the ability to just point to an ownership field. Okay, so you could pre-prep the file, okay, and designate owners in the file, and they either have to be designated by last name, first name, last name, or their Salesnet ID. Okay, so that's the third one. All right, so a couple of different options here for designating ownership just to allow you to easily manage that assignment. Okay. Now we want to do field assignment. Okay, so if you notice we have a common theme here. Okay, ownership and data field management are handled separately, just like they are, when we're doing reporting and dashboarding and everything else. Okay, here we did our ownership first, and now we're going to do our field assignment second, our field selection. Okay, so we're just going to go through and map the data. Okay, what you see here in this display gives you all of your Salesnet fields, okay, down the left under the column application field, and you get to select from your import fields down the right. Okay, so in each drop down you select what field in the file you want to assign to the Salesnet field. So in this case we're assigning work phone from the file to the Salesnet main phone field. Alright, so you just go through and do that. Unless there's a red asterisk beside the field, it's not required that there be anything mapped to it. And then we have a couple of other options here, one called fill in and one called required. Okay, fill in means, and so you'll see I have it selected here for lead source. Fill in means I didn't have a value for that field in my import file, but I would like to set it. Okay, I'd like to set it for the entire file. So when I select fill in for lead source, when I go to the next page, when I click next, I get the chance to designate what I want the fill in value to be, and that will be the fill in value for all the records in the file. Okay, I can also designate that a field be required. Okay, so one of the things you can do is say I only, I could have selected that state be, required. If I did that, what would happen in my file is that as it imported, if it came across a record where state was missing, it would kick it out. Okay, it would not import it. Okay, so if you didn't clean the file or you're worried about the data in the file, specifically missing data, you can check off the required checkbox and the wizard will kick things out for you if that data is not filled in. Okay, so once we do our field mapping, designate our fill-ins, and designate our required fields, we click Next, and then we get to select the fill-in values. And so in this example, you can see I selected fill-in for 3 fields, and then I can designate those on the next screen. Okay, once we're past that, once we've done the field mapping, then we get a list of all the fields that we didn't map. Okay, so in this example in the screenshot, we only created a company record, for in this import, but there were other fields. There were like contact fields and products and etc. So there's 2 things going on this screen. One, if you didn't map it, you can choose to stuff it in to one of the notes fields. So just because it's not going to be assigned to a specific data field in Salesnet doesn't mean you're going to lose the data. You can append it into a notes field. Okay, the second thing that is happening here that I really think is a nice thing is that you can look down this list and go, oh no, I meant to map number of employees. Let me go back and map it and then go forward again. Okay, so this is a nice little catch-all for, did I miss one of my field mappings, right? And then finally, once we get all of our fields designated in notes, this is our last screen, somewhat of a summary screen, and the ability to save the import definition. Okay, so you want to save the import definition before you submit the import. Otherwise, you're not going to have a chance to save the definition. Okay, so that goes away. So save the definition, or you can save on top of or overwrite an existing definition if you made modifications. And then in the second window, you can submit the import. You can schedule it to run in the future or run it right away. You can give it a description, and I do recommend that you give all of your imports a description because it'll be easier to see in the list of import history. And you can also send yourself an email or a message center note when it's done. Now, I would say, these days imports run very quickly. I mean, with the machine, the power that's behind them, I see really no times when users need to schedule them in the future because they're worried that they're going to run slow or something. This is only, if you want it to run in the future because you're going to be gone and you want to be able to review it when it's done, that kind of thing. So kind of a nice to have, but definitely not a requirement. Okay. Next, we're gonna go straight through these slides, and then we'll go through the live example. When you run your import, which was done through the data import menu item, you can then go to data import history, to see the results. What you're looking at here, is a 2-part screen really. If your import is running, it will still show in this pending area. When it's done, it will show in the second portion of the window. What you'll see is we have a gray one and a white one. The gray means this has already been deleted, and the red timestamp is showing you when it was deleted. So this import, the data that was imported here, these 10 records, is no longer valid. The second import, was finished, and we can see the name of the import. This is the description that you gave it. And you can see that it found duplicate companies. It also found kickout records. Okay, the nice thing about the kickout is you get not only a listing of the records that were kicked out, but you also get a list of reasons so that you can correct them and re-import them. Okay, and then if I deleted, this entry at this point, it would also go gray and it would record a timestamp for the deletion. Okay, so let's go look at a live import here. We'll just run through one quickly. So we go to data import and then we browse to our file. We'll do a three-part mapping here. We'll do account, company, opportunity. Okay, so I selected my file. I click Browse. Oh, I clicked Browse again, sorry. I selected my file and I click Next. Okay, so you'll see here that it read in the file and we have 548 records and it shows us, okay, all of our fields here. And we can go and look and we have several definitions and then we can create a new one. So why don't we use one of our pre-existing definitions, and what you can see here is this definition is set to import companies, contacts, and opportunities. So it's going to do that three-part import for me. Okay, and I'm going to start with that, okay, just to kind of save us some time. I click Next. This is formatting information that if you're doing typical U.S. localized data, then you just want to leave this the same. And now you can see we're pre-selected for company, contact, opportunity. We're set here to dedupe companies based on company name. Okay, and so what you're seeing here, okay, is my template, my definition was set to look for a field called company name. But actually in this file it's company underscore name. Okay, so I need to modify that. And here I'm going to allow it to create duplicate contacts. I'm not going to restrict. And I'm going to allow it to create duplicate opportunities. Okay, so you can see because I'm doing a three-part import, okay, I'm getting to designate duplication for each type of record. Now I have to do assignment for the companies and the contacts, and I'm going to do it on a piece of data. Okay, I want to go through and show you that concept. So let's see. This is a strange file actually, but we're gonna go with it. So I'm going to do it based on people who are opted in for a given product or not. Okay, so when I go to the next screen, what it does is it reads in the values that are in that field, and I can now say, okay, all of my no's I'm going to assign to the user 08, okay, user, and my yeses, okay, I'm going to assign to Salesnet 01. Okay, so I didn't have to prep my file for ownership. I just assigned ownership based on a value in the file. Next, I need to assign the owner of the opportunities. Okay, again, we're doing a bit more of an involved import, so we have to address these different sections for each type of record. Now, an easy one here is a fourth option. I'm just going to let the owner of the opportunity be the owner that was assigned to the contact record. Okay, I could designate it differently, okay, but I'm just going to go with this. Now I need to do my mapping. First I'm doing my company field mapping or my account field mapping. And this is going to go fast because we don't have a ton of data in here. So I'm going to do company name, and I'm going to fill in the lead source, and I'll fill in the country just like it says here. Okay. Then I need to do my contact info. And here we designate how our first name and last name are stored. So if I didn't split my data out, okay, I could have a concatenated last first field, but the very best results always occur if you have your first and last name split apart. So I'll say name first, name last, and then I'll go in here and I'll fill in what I have, which is not a ton, but I do have email address. Okay. Now I need to set my opportunity fields. Now, I did not prep my file at all for opportunity data, but what you'll see here is I'm filling in everything, okay, that's required. Okay, this is going to be kind of interesting on how the import wizard is going to go about creating opportunity records for me based on next to no data. Okay, so we'll walk through that piece. So everything that has a red asterisk, if I'm not going to map it, it has to be filled in. Okay, so we'll be doing that shortly. Like this screen. So now I'm broken up into a couple of sections. Okay, I have to map my lead source info and my country info. And then I have to go in and I have to build, okay, essentially fill in all of this opportunity data. So what I can do is I can synthesize the opportunity name. So I'll say, let's make it a combination of company name dash the submitted date. And you'll see these are just fields that Salesnet is providing to me. I need to pick the process. I'm going to map the lead source. This is a trade show file. Now, I can even do something. I can do scheduled allocation with all my date fields. So remember, opportunities require a start date and a finish date, and they also have a next step due date. Well, I'm importing 500 records, and I don't want Ted and user 01 to log in tomorrow and everything be overdue or due all on the same day. So what I can do is I can designate a scheduled allocation, and I can set the begin date to say, let's say 7/1. Okay, and I can say, only start. Oh, and I don't want anything on Saturday and Sunday. Only allow 2 opportunities per day. So on any given day, once this import's done, Ted and user 01 are never going to have more than 2 opportunities due. Okay. I do need to set my finish date, and I'm going to set that way in the future because I don't want my begin date to outstrip my finish date. And then my step due date can then be based on an offset, okay, from the start date. So I can say, make my first opportunities due in plus 5 days or 7 days. Okay, so if we start 2 opportunities on July 1st, okay, then my first one, the first due dates are going to be on July 9th. Okay, and then there on out. Then 2 opportunities on July 2nd, then those dates are going to be 7 days out. Okay, so on and so on. And then I can set probability as well. And the other thing that I set here was campaign. Okay, remember when we talked about campaign? We can default campaign for this entire import file so that all of these records are going to be tied to our trade show campaign. Next. Now I get my listing of all the fields that I had available for mapping, and I can say, no, okay, fine. But you know what? I would really like to preserve all of these fields, though, and I think I want to put them in the company notes fields. So I'm going to just map them all into the Notes 1 field for company. See how it's pre-selected? Now I could go through here and add them to other things, and map them all over the place, but I really just want everything to be in the company record. Okay, here are my notes, and it'll put every one of those in there. So I'm going to click next, and I'm going to save this import definition. So this is the we'll say it's the July demo ACO import. I can share it with other people who have access to import. Okay. And now I can submit. Alright, and I'll go ahead and send myself a an email for when it's done, just so we can look at that. And I want to name it, and I think I'll just name it the same. And submit. My screen immediately refreshes, and it actually took me to the data import history menu item, and you can see that my import is submitted, okay, and it'll be done in just a couple of minutes. Okay, so while our import is running, and at any time I can click refresh, and get an up-to-date entry there. So while our import's running, because it is 500 records, we're going to go ahead and talk about multi-record action. Okay, and we'll come back and catch our import. Okay, so multi-record action. Okay, there are two types of multi-record action. Okay, and they are updating ownership for mass records and updating fields for records in mass. Okay, and this privilege is also its own set of privileges in the user profile. If we go and look at our user profile, we have multi-record action here. Okay, and not only do we have these two multi-record action items, we also have the ability to enable record merge, and we also have the ability to enable mass updating from Excel. Okay, and these two items need to be added into our presentation, but we'll go over them before we leave this section. So multi-record action is executed from the reports module. So if you'll remember, we went over the idea that reports is not just for getting output, it's also used for multi-record updates. It's used to leverage to create our mass communication, email communications, and to create snapshots. Okay. When we perform a multi-record action within Salesnet, we also get a little history notation on those, and they're also found in the data transformation and integration menu, multi-record update history, which is all about field updates, and multi-record ownership history, which is all about reassigning records. Okay, multi-record action. This just goes through and gives you an idea. You can update fields, built-in fields, or custom fields for any type of record, account, contact, opportunity, or lead. Okay, fields that are not part of a multi-record update would be things like calculated fields. Okay, because the calculation actually depends on other fields. So you can update the fields that are part of a calculation. iLinks. Okay, we don't update owner fields through multi-record update. That's done for ownership. And we can't update things like tasks and appointments, multi-notes. Can't change the process of an opportunity, etc. Okay. Reassign ownership. We can reassign ownership for any of our major records, account, contact, opportunity, leads, but not for steps. Okay, and we don't reassign ownership for appointments, tasks, and attached documents. Okay, so let's go through the different screens here on how to launch into the multi-record update. And again, it all starts with the report. The idea being is that you create a report that pulls back the records that you want to update. For example, I want to assign all of the accounts owned by Ted Salesnet over to user 01. So I just need to create a report that filters out Ted Salesnet's account records, and then I need to perform a multi-record action. And I can do that either from the definition, or I can do it from the run screen where I've actually shown the output. When I do that, I get a series of pop-ups. It's like a little mini wizard just within itself. First of all, I have to designate, is it a field update or an ownership update? And then I give it a name, okay, a description. Again, I recommend the description because when you look at it in the history list, this will help you know which update this was. Then I just need to designate which user I'm reassigning. Now you're going to have a couple of extra options here. Like if we're reassigning companies, I also get the option to reassign the contacts. Okay, so contacts, all the contacts for a company or just the contacts that were owned by Ted Salesnet. Okay. Maybe I don't want to reassign. If some of the contacts under a company record were owned by user 03, I don't want to take those from him and assign those to user 01. So you really have to read the choices here, okay, with the radio buttons. If I don't select anything, then it won't reassign any contacts. Okay. Once I click next, then I get a validation pop-up, and actually when I click go, I even get a third pop-up. Now, let's go through the field update. Okay, it's the same concept. You want to create a report that pulls back the records that need updating. Okay, in this case, I'm creating a report where country is blank. So I want to update the country value for anything that's blank. Okay, now I have to set it all to the same value, so I'm assuming, okay, I'm going to set all of these to US, right? Then I need to click multi-record action, okay, same starting point, but now in my wizard I need to designate update. I need to designate the first option, and then I need to put in comments. Now I can pick more than one field to be updated. Okay, I could update more than one, and then in the third screen I want to designate what the value is. If it's a text field, I can even append. I don't have to overwrite if it's a text or note field. If it's a number field or a drop down, it's obviously an overwriting scenario. I click next, I say go, and then it runs. Then I have some history to go look at. Similarly, the history we showed you earlier is in the data transformation menu, and you get a listing of all the updates that you've run. And I can see how many records updated, when it was done, and you'll see here the comment. This is the description. Okay, this is very helpful. And I have up to 5 days to roll back an update, either a field update or an ownership update. Okay, so again, if you realize that there was an issue early on with one of your updates, you can roll it back and everything is set back to normal. Okay, so let's go check on our import. I feel like I'm a chef on a cook show. Like, let's go look in the oven and see how it's doing. So, how did we do? Well, it's done, and it imported 213 companies, 548 contacts, and a lot of opportunities. Okay, so, I do have some kick-out records. So let's look at that. First of all, I had duplicate companies. Okay, so if I click on that link, it brings me back a report, okay, of all the records where there were duplicates. So it's saying, rows 10 through 15 all had the same company. Then I have my kickouts. So my kickout records were So it's downloading the kickout file from the server to my local machine, so not that many kickouts. So I have a few kickouts here, and now I want to look at my kickout reasons because it really doesn't make a lot of sense to me without the reasons. And so what I'm seeing here is that the opportunity name was too long. It was greater than 50. So that meant the concatenation of my company name plus the date overran my opportunity name. So in this case, in order to re-import these, I probably need to just add an opportunity name field. And I need to make sure it's under 50 characters. Okay. I would save that and then I would run it back through the same import. Okay, so pretty easy. Let's go look at some of our items that were imported. Okay, one of the ways that we can do that is by looking for things with a certain import run ID. Okay, so if I go to companies, okay, and let's run a, let's add, okay, to our layout, let's add the import run ID. So you'll see here, I have a couple of different things. I have record source type, so was it created via import, desktop browser, external data capture, and then I have an import run. That's going to give me the import run information. Okay, so I'm going to add those to my layout so we can see that, and I'm going to save. So see here, it's already showing up. So first of all, I can just query on import, and then I can sort on created on date, and I can easily see them. Now, I could also have built a report for this and etc. But you're going to see here I get a nice little output. I can click in, look at all my notes that are appended, from the fields that I didn't map. I can go look at the contacts, and then I can go look at the opportunities. Okay. And you'll see this one is kind of odd, in that it has a start date in the future. Okay, but that keeps it queued up for me, right? So I don't have to really deal with that opportunity as a user until it comes up, in my next step due date. Okay. All right, so our final topic in maintaining your data, wanted to go back quickly and hit record merge. Okay, so let's talk about record merge. Let's look at here. Okay, we wound up with a couple of duplicates here for OmniFlow computers. Okay, so record merge is easy. Okay, if it's been checked off for you in your privilege profile, then you have the ability to highlight two records, right-click, and merge. Okay, so I can now merge these two company records together to make one. So I just simply hold down my Control key or my Shift key. When those two are highlighted, I right-click and merge, and now I get a display. And at the top here, it tells me a little information about each record, and then I can pick which one I want to go with. If they're exact duplicates, no worries, just pick one and go. If I saw that the notes here were different, I might select and say, well, I want all this data, but I want the notes from here. And/or I could just append them all together. Okay, so I'm keeping this record. I have it highlighted, but I'm discarding this one. So what do I want to do with it? Do I want to reassign it to somebody else or just delete it? And I'm just going to delete it. So I click merge. And now I'm down to one. So what I want to make note of with you is that for record merge to work for a user, okay, if you're going to give your users that ability, number one, they have to have access to all the data fields. Okay, so if you've forgotten to grant access or you have them locked out of certain data fields, they're not going to be effectively able to merge records. Okay, so that's the first requirement. Secondly, they do have to have the ability to delete records, because one of the options is deleting for the discard. Okay, so record merge does mean that your users have to have certain privileges in order for the merge to work all the way through. Okay, on to our final topic for data management, and this is the external data capture. And we're really just going to go through the concepts here in the screenshots. I'm not going to build an external data capture, but we're going to talk about it and so that you know how to set it up and share it with your web staff as needed. So XDC, external data capture, is the ability for you to create HTML forms and publish them out somewhere on the internet or an intranet. Okay, so that form then lives somewhere else outside of Salesnet. People can fill it out, and that form knows that when the form is filled out and completed, to send that data back to Salesnet. Okay, so classic example of this is a contact us form. So if we go look at salesnet.com and we go look at the contact us page, this form is a Salesnet external data capture that knows to send information back into the Salesnet account that we use. Okay, so when someone fills it out and hits contact us, it comes back into our account. Now the nice thing about the XDC, and I'll just go ahead and start calling it XDC for short, is that it will automatically send an email as a notification when someone completes the form. It will automatically assign it based on routing rules. So zip codes, time of the day, you just want to randomly round robin, okay, through this, and it will assign that out to the appropriate user. You can create lead records, or you can create account contacts and opportunities. Okay, external data capture is managed again through the data transformation menu. Okay, and you can have more than one. All right, and the very first thing that happens when you click add is that you give it a name, select the type of record, and you can give it a description as well. Now, when we look at the external data capture definition, it's set up again. It looks a lot like maybe the report definition. Okay, we have properties, overarching properties, and then we have other sections to fill out like selecting the fields and then assigning ownership. Okay, so a very common workflow here for working through the definition. Now if we look at the property windows, I mean there are some somewhat more technical settings here that may or may not make sense. When we go into this section, we need to validate the name. We have to enable the form. It has to be set to accepting submissions. So you could set up an XDC, give the HTML out, and not have the form enabled so that it's not submitting data. We can allow the creation of duplicates or not. And then we have some settings here that are really somewhat geared toward managing, I would say, spam in a way. If there's data missing, do you want to accept it or not? If it has extra data on it, do you want to accept it or not? And then we have some designation on whether it's, what time zone is it running in, okay, to make the time work out. The next section is all about selecting the fields for the form. And again, there's the concept of, is it a required field or not? So is the field going to be available on the form, for the user to fill out, and is it going to be required? A perfect example really of one that would not be available on the form in the case of leads might be stage and stage set. Because how would anybody filling out that form know how to answer that question? So that maybe is something that we would default behind the scenes. Okay, we would maybe set it to, trade show. Okay, if we posted a form at a trade show, so that when it came into the system, it would automatically default. Okay, so if you look at our Salesnet Contact Us form, this creates a lead record, but you don't see stage and stage set here. It's being set behind the scenes. Okay, so it's not available on the form. Okay, we can make it required, and that would mean like country is required here, company name is required, email address is required. And so what that means is if you make it required here in the definition, when you generate the HTML, you can also include JavaScript that takes care of those validations. Okay, so you require the user to fill in data. Okay, and you'll notice here in this example, we're also mapping the campaign. So again, back to the concept of campaigns, if we get the data associated to the appropriate campaign as it's coming into the system, then we have a lot less work to do in order to take advantage of that campaign data. Also, we can designate the label. Okay, so here, company, we don't call that field company within our Salesnet. It probably says company name, but on the form we just want it to say company. Okay. Next, okay, as we're selecting our fields, okay, this is the wizard, okay, that you get. You get to pick the fields on the left, you get to designate is it available or not or required, and then you get to designate the labels and then the default values, okay. I just showed you, what you see when you look at the list of fields on the definition. This is the wizard workflow, okay, that walks you through designating the needed pieces. And then finally you pick ownership. Okay, this is where we can designate ownership be assigned by rules. So anybody that submits anything from Georgia goes to Lynn, anything that's submitted from Alabama goes to Eddie. Okay, the system will take care of that. We can also do the round robin option. So if we get 10 leads in today, the first one goes to me, the second one goes to Rachel, the third one goes to me, the fourth one goes to Rachel, and the system keeps up with who should get the next lead as it comes in to the system. Okay? And it doesn't have to round robin through everybody. I could just designate to round robin through my 2 users. Even if I have 10 users, I can designate just to round robin through a couple of them. Okay, and then we have a section for security, response, and notification. Now this one is wrapped up in, what happens after the data is submitted to Salesnet. Okay, first of all, we may want to redirect the person who submitted the page or the data to a thank you page or to a download page for a white paper. Okay, so we can designate that. We may want to send an autoresponder, okay, to the person who filled out the form saying thank you for filling out the form, someone will be in touch. And if you required email address on your form, then you can do that. And look, it leverages an email template, okay, that you created in the email section. Alright, so a couple of things here kind of tying together, okay, like campaigns and email templates, okay, into this XDC. We can also designate a notification to go to the owner of the record, or we can designate an external notification. Okay, so somebody who's not even in the system could get a notification that a record was just submitted. Okay, so this is the success section at the top. We can designate those same things for a failed section. So, what might designate a failure? One of the most common scenarios is that you publish a form with a drop-down box and then you change the values in the drop-down inside of Salesnet. As soon as you do that, if someone selects a value in that drop-down that doesn't match, you're going to get a failure. Okay, so that is the number one reason that you might get a failure. Okay, so let's look at the form that we have inside of our demo account, because the one thing I didn't show you in the slideshow was how to generate the HTML. So external data capture, if I go edit this guy, you'll see generate HTML at the top. That just brings you a pop-up and you just copy paste this into a text file and send it on its way. The thing to remember, and it's given you a note here and I'll also mention it below, is that there is also a flag in the form that sets it to debug. You do not want it to be in debug if you want it to work. So the developer needs to set the debug flag to no or to N. Alright? And if we just preview this guy, this just gives us an idea of what fields are available. And this is not particularly attractive, okay, but a web developer would style this into the style of the page. So, of the same, kind of note there, this doesn't look anything like what we just saw. Okay, this is more attractive. All right, so that rounds out our data management section. So I'm going to take us into our next section, which would be the add-on modules. Okay, so we have several access options or additional modules for Salesnet. You will see those listed under client-side tools. Okay, and we have offline listed here, which, just a quick note, offline will be retiring. So this is one that is kind of end-of-lifing going forward, so we won't spend any time on that. The other 3 client-side tools are the Excel, Outlook, and Word add-in, okay, that make up the Office Suite options. Within each one of these menu items, what you're going to find is the download, okay, to install the add-in, and you'll also find a link for release notes. Okay, and there's some description regarding your version of operating system or Office that you have, and so you download here and go to the release notes. Okay, same thing here, download and release notes. All right, so how do you get access to these menu options? Okay, that's the first question. Well, these menu options are tied into the user profile. So if we go look at the user profile, okay, down at the bottom, you see access options listed here. Well, there's obviously more listed here than there are in the menu. Okay, the first three are obvious: Excel, Outlook, Word. We have offline, which goes away. And then we have two more access options. We have mobile and web services API. Okay, mobile is actually a separate website. Okay, that is mobile1.salesnet.com, and it's a text-based site that users can log into on their smartphones, on their pads. I mean, you can even access it, on your desktop browser or laptop browser, but it just gives you quick access to the data in Salesnet. Specifically, it was built for the smartphone. Okay. Now, there's no menu item for that. Okay, so what I would recommend is if you want to investigate mobile, one of the things you can do is go to the Help Center. Okay, and if we go into our release notes, you're going to have a mobile release note here that you can download, and it gives you the link to the site, and it also tells you, how to set up the screens or any kind of initial setup that you might need to do there. Okay, if you want the information, for Outlook and Word is here. Excel will be added into the list as well, and then we have our release notes available under each section. So the thing about our access options for Excel, Outlook, and Word is that they are all plug-in items within each application. So if I launch the Word application, you'll see I have a Salesnet ribbon. Okay, and Word, the Salesnet add-in for Word allows you to create Word templates or manage them if you have the privilege. You can merge into that template, and then you can attach and save the results into Salesnet either as a Word or as a PDF document. Okay, whenever the add-in is installed, you need to go in and put in your validation information. Okay, Excel is the same thing. When I launch my Excel, I have a Salesnet ribbon. Okay, and the Excel add-in for the Salesnet add-in for Excel has two main functions. One is to get data, pull it down into the sheet, and one is for updating. Okay, so we can get data either by querying or leveraging reports, and then we can use a formatted file to then push updates back into Salesnet. Then we have our Outlook add-in. And so when I launch my Outlook, you're also going to see, and let me get to a screen here. Okay, you're going to see Salesnet here on the ribbon, but Salesnet really in this case shows up under add-ins. And I can force a synchronization now, which does does an appointment, task, contact, synchronization, and allows me to push emails, okay, into Salesnet. So being an email that has an important message on it, maybe I want to link it into a given contact record, and it'll do that based on email address. And then we have settings, and so you can choose to turn off any portion of those. Okay, but the main point here is that all of our add-ins result in a Salesnet ribbon, and each of the add-ins you have to go into the settings area and you put in your authentication information, okay, and then there are settings to configure from there. At that point, you can go back into the menu items here to access the appropriate release notes and directions for setting up the access options. Okay. Now our web services piece, finally, on that portion of it, is found under data transformation. And our web service API, okay, this is our programmable interface, and that is a secure programmable interface, and it does require validation. And so you can tie different user accounts to your programmable interfaces. And so this is where you would come in and manage, what options they can have. Is it creating accounts or querying accounts? And then you tie those to specific users. Okay, so that's where this access option is maintained, and that's covered in a separate presentation, as well as the presentations on the access options. So those are all covered in their own separate webinars to discuss the functionality there. Okay.